Welcome back to the collaboration space. I'm your host, Mathew DeFreitas, and joining me today to discuss the evolution of hybrid work and their people first approach to it is Neat's Vice President of Emerging Technologies, Hellene Garcia, and National Channel Director, Kristen Nash. Hellene, Kristen, welcome to the collaboration space.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely. I'm excited to dive into this topic with both of you. Helene, I'll start with you. The hybrid workplace has seen a rapid transformation from remote video conferencing and cloud sharing to advanced and interoperable technologies, making life easier for IT and the end user. And recently, we embraced AI, which is changing how we work on a personal level now. So, how does Neat see this evolution, and where does Neat see it going?
Yeah, well, I think, our perspective kind of aligns to, initially what you said, right? The way we're working is all rapidly changing. And, I think, our perspective is that the office isn't going anywhere. The footprint's changing, and that hybrid work, flexible work is really here to stay. And what we hear, so we hear this from our customers. What we also hear from our customers is that their employees want flexibility to work, how and where they want to be able to work. And the business is trying to figure out how to support this all, but then trying to figure out what's viable, what's right for the business. And, all of that creates challenges, creates decisions that have to be made, but has an impact on us as people, on us personally. And as we were preparing to meet with you, Kristen and I were talking about some of this, and Kristen, you had
Mhm.
some pretty interesting stats
Yeah,
around the impact of that. So maybe you want to jump in and share
yeah,
those.
Helene. Yeah, no, thanks. I think initially remote work gave us this feeling of a better work-life balance, but people quickly burn out. And I have some statistics here saying 86% of remote workers really felt a high level of burnout. I think I was probably one of those. Um, The in-office worker did experience about, or 70% of the in-office worker was also had some burnout. And then workers that did remote or hybrid, remote and in-office was about right in the middle at about 81%. So today we're really striving to alleviate that burnout by improving people's everyday work life, regardless if they're working remotely or going into an office. Helene, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to consider, and for businesses to consider, and it's not just about improving the experiences that employees have when they're working in the office or they're working remotely, but it's also about enabling and supporting those roles in the business that have to try to address this and deal with this every single day. So you've got, those folks that are all day, every day, thinking about the footprint, thinking about, how to configure these spaces. So that would be your, your workplace experience, your workplace planners or facilities personnel, as well as, the IT role in the tech investments that they have to make to actually be able to support all this. And so those two roles, they're faced with a lot. And I think, the way we look at it, this, Kristen, is,
Hmm.
thinking about the fact that choice and flexibility are fundamental. They're things that, have to be there for the business. The business has got to be flexible in the way things are changing, but they've got to make investments that can help support them in choices and in flexibility in terms of addressing the different work styles and addressing the workspace so that they can provide what they need to provide on the daily. And it's got to be able to give those roles the ability to kind of manage all of this, the oversight and the insight that they need across across the spaces. But it's also got to support them in providing the right experiences for you and I, right? The employee,
Yeah.
when they are in those spaces and when they're trying to work remotely. And they have a lot that they have to consider. They're trying to figure out, how are we going to support employees that want to be able to work anywhere, right? How can they work effectively? And how do we support this thing called user flexibility? What technology solutions do we deploy in these spaces that are actually going to meet the needs and the expectations? And then, of course, how do we make sure that the investments that we make in tech, in real estate, not just deliver what we need them to deliver today, but support us in the future? And so those are all the things that they have to consider. And so that's where, we really focus at NEAT every single day. We're focused on how do we provide as much value as we can to our customers through our solutions. We don't take the investments that they make in NEAT lightly. And so how do we support them not only today and give them value today to address their needs, but how do we give them value in the future as well? And, Kristen knows this very well. We really, we strive always to do that the NEAT way, and that's neat, simple, and easy. And it's about elevating the experiences that we provide across the portfolio, not just for employees, not just for those of us using it, but the experiences that, the IT personnel, the facilities personnel have as they try to manage it. And that's where NEAT Pulse, our cloud platform, is really kind of at the heart of it all.
Well, and speaking of NEAT Pulse, for those of those that may not be familiar, could you speak to it and, how it's enhancing that people first aspect of modern work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we take, the role of IT, right? Those individuals, those people and facilities, NEAT Pulse gives IT centralized control and management and monitoring capabilities so that they can actually support all the employees with those devices. So this is a platform that's scalable across any kind of size of organization. So it provides all of the functionality that businesses would expect in terms of a device management capability, but it also has some really robust capabilities in terms of standard and custom room setups or advanced software upgrades and some really unique remote control capabilities. And then the platform also provides insights for IT and facilities in terms of, utilization and the environment itself. And then it gives them this choice and flexibility of what to deploy what makes sense in the area based on its set of users, based on, function, whatever it be. And so, this gives IT the ability to deploy Zoom or Microsoft Teams on a NEAT device, or they can deploy NEAT Select. So this is our BYOD capability that we announced a few weeks ago that we also then announced as GA as of last week. And then in addition to deploying, one of those things, they could also choose on some devices to deploy a range of business applications. So we've made business applications accessible through AppHub. And so this then allows them to give users that user flexibility or to address that user flexibility in a way that gives their users access to tools that they might use regularly on a NEAT device. And, when we think about NEAT Pulse and all of this, it really has been architected in a way that can give you sort of this broad capability or address broader experiences. So that's what we have in mind.
Well, and speaking of addressing broader experiences, you touched on App Hub there, and I'm curious, the different aspects of it that benefit the end user. Can you give me sort of a high level understanding of the unique nature of the app and what it allows a lot of end users, employees like myself to do in a collaboration space?
Yeah, absolutely. So AppHub is a marketplace, and it's a marketplace that brings applications that are part of everyday workflows in a business or with employees. It brings those applications to NEAT devices. It supports a range of use cases, and we'll talk about that in a second, with a really broad set of market leading applications. So, a lot of businesses are trying to address workplace experiences. So the experience that employees have as they're navigating, as they enter the office, as they're navigating in and around the office. So there's a range of applications that can be deployed on Neat devices to support that. These would support things like visitor management. So, kiosk style application, where as an employee or a visitor, I come up to this application, I check in and I'm badged and I can go on my way. Wayfinding, once I get to the office, is there available, an available space for me to meet, to work at, or where's that meeting room I want to go to, right? So wayfinding is another application or use case that's supported by a range of applications on Neat devices. And then of course, there's things like digital signage or virtual receptionist. So these are capabilities that are supported from a workplace experience perspective, and they're supported where there's a range of applications. There's hundreds of applications out there, many of them market leading, that businesses use all the time. They can use those on Neat devices, so they can deploy those applications on Neat devices and then be able to provide that kind of capability and that experience for employees and visitors. And then, another use case that App Hub supports with a range of applications is collaboration in shared spaces. So this would be, applications like, collaborative whiteboarding or content management, project management, team building type of, applications, energizing applications, right? Music, that kind of stuff, where these apps are traditionally used by us here on our desktops, on our laptops. Well, when you're in a shared space, it's not a great experience to be with a bunch of people, have this amazing device in there, Neat device, of course, and be looking at this application or running this application on the laptop. Why not leverage the device that you have in the room and run that application? So, these collaboration applications are now brought to our Neat board portfolio of devices for users to access them. And all of these applications that we make accessible, they're actually centrally deployed and managed by IT. So IT can pick and choose what applications make sense to deploy in what spaces and provide employees access to those applications. So it gives really IT the freedom and the flexibility to pick and choose what makes sense for an area of the business or a cohort, et cetera, or neighborhood, as I think some folks refer to it, and deploy things where they make sense. And all of these applications are centrally managed as well.
And is there room for, say, an employee in the space, an end user, to deploy an application on, say, a need by need basis?
So I think, if it's an application that an employee wants to run or use that isn't accessible on the device, then, certainly that employee would go to their IT administrator and say, hey, look, I've got this great application, or we have this need. And, chances are that application is something that's already supported in App Hub. And if it's not, and it's a web-based application, and IT feels like this application would be, quite useful for that cohort or team of folks or across the business, then, if it's a web tool, if it's a web app, it's a website, like maybe it's an intranet site or site services, that kind of stuff. One of the additional unique capabilities of App Hub is we support what we call custom web apps. So we allow IT to the freedom and the flexibility to configure a website, a web app, a web tool of sorts, and be able to deploy that across the Neat devices that are running App Hub, or deploy it on a needs basis, right? So that's one way. And then, the other way we support, that kind of access is obviously just with Neat Select, right? So being able to have a device, if IT has deployed that device in a BYOD mode, with Neat Select, then certainly the employee can plug in their laptop and be able to use the application that way.
It's definitely these applications and the different aspects of them are truly bringing in a people first, people centric experience to the modern workplace. Taking our conversation back just quickly to Neat Pulse, the solution, from what I understand, is built with a broader purpose in mind. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Neat Pulse has been built to build on. And so for us, it's not just about bringing applications and solutions to the Neat Pulse platform for access, but it's really about extending the robust capabilities that we talked about earlier of the platform through our APIs to a larger ecosystem. And that larger ecosystem, includes AVI-SPL. So, I've done a lot of talking now, so maybe Kristen, you want to take over and touch on this a bit more.
No, I think it's great. This is a great highlight between the partnership between AVI, SPL, and Neat, really through partnering with the APIs with Pulse into the Symphony platform that AVI, SPL offers. So we're really supporting our customers together. Many businesses have multi-vendor estates, right? And the IT managers are really, they're managing multiple assets in each space. So we recognize the best way to support people in the modern workspace is to really look at the total value of a space. So we're happy to partner with AVI SPL to ensure customers really understand that value.
Well, we certainly thank you for that partnership. And I just want to, also comment, by connecting to Symphony, Pulse is, taking even more of a people first approach to hybrid work by helping IT streamline the management of its larger ecosystem, if we will. So ultimately, we're talking about providing that one unified view of an organization's collaboration, infrastructure, or estate, if we will.
Exactly. And I think, by making, workplace devices and applications easily accessible to users, what we're really doing together is ensuring that these experiences that they want to have are the experiences they have. The expectations and the needs are absolutely met.
Yeah. Yeah, and by streamlining the management and the easing access to the workspace devices and applications, we can really reduce that burnout that I had previously talked about, and continue to make life easier and simpler for people in the workspace.
Yeah, neat, simple and easy, Kristen, you got it.
Hellene, Kristen, I've really enjoyed exploring the evolution of hybrid work and the unique ways Neat Pulse and Neat App Hub support a people-first approach to it. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Collaboration Space.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Matt. We really appreciate it.
To everyone watching and listening, thank you for joining us. For more on Neat Pulse and Neat App Hub, you can find links with more details in our show notes below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. If you prefer the audio version of this podcast, just search the Collaboration Space on your favorite podcast app. Thanks again, and goodbye for now. For more information, visit avispl.com/neat.